Hold on, let me get a yawn.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week on Clockwise Thoughts. Um, we have an interesting topic this week. It's been one that has weighed heavy on the music industry. It's one that's really weighed heavy on the culture itself, and it's the murder of Jam Master Jay. But this one is more so, you know, the recent break in the murder of Jam Master Jay. Yes, you heard me right. There's a recent break. There are recent developments in this code case of approximately 20 years. So I'm going to kick it to Black. He has a little bit more information on that for us, Black. So go right on ahead.
Yeah, how you doing, everybody? Most of us know Run DMC, whether from the music, those old enough of us old enough to remember the music. Some people have, seen Run's house with, Rev Run, or founding member of Run DMC. But yeah, we're really talking about Jam Master Jay, aka Jason Mizell. Um, he was gunned down in his recording studio in 2002, I believe, in Jamaica, Queens, New York. Here we are, 2020. So yeah, like you said, we're talking about 20 years. Case basically ice cold. But some new developments have led to the arrests, two in particular of Carl Johnson Jr. and Ronald Washington. Now, there's a story going out. It seems to be the same. I've checked a couple of different outlets, NPR, and a few other sources, as far as to what can we understand from what's turned up new. And according to the reports, apparently Jam Master Jay, we lost Jam Master Jay to what looks like a drug deal gone bad. Allegedly, there was supposed to be 10 kilos of coke being moved out of New York to be sold in Maryland, I believe, allegedly by Mr. Ronald Washington. Jam Master Jay, Mr. Mizell, he was supplying the drugs, and apparently there was a deal that went sour. Somebody was getting cut out of the deal, as the report goes, and that led Mr. Washington to conspire with Mr. Jordan to shoot Jam Master Jay as some form of retaliation for being X'd out of a potential deal. So right now we're still trying to effort more information, but it looks like one of the, I guess you could say, most prolific mysteries in hip hop basically has its roots in a drug deal gone bad. I think that's kind of crazy, especially considering how long this case has been cold, that we're just now finding out about this information.
It's I do find it interesting that all of a sudden there are these bits of information that just so happen to pop up. How no matter how you say it, no matter how you write it, no matter how you split it, if I don't know how to take it. It's like if it's true, it's true, and we probably would have heard about it. But it's like this information is coming right out of left field. It's coming clean out the woodwork. But I mean, it's just odd, man. I'm floored just now hearing all of a sudden that one of the a member of one of the more prolific groups in hip hop and rap and music in general. Because don't forget, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
As well.
Like all of a sudden, oh yeah, he was selling coke. What? Huh? Like I know one plus one is two, and two plus two is four. But how did they get to five from one plus one? Like it's stuff that doesn't add up. I mean, it is nice to hear that they do have their suspects, but one of their suspects, from what I understand from checking with the New York Post, or incorrect, New York Times, and that's NewYorkTimes.com. Mr. Washington, he's 56 years old, and he's currently serving a federal prison sentence. And that prison sentence is 210 months. So you convicted a guy, or you're not convicted. You're bringing up charges against a gentleman who's already serving 17 and a half years in prison. Interesting. Don't know too much extra about it right now, but it is interesting.
Well, I mean, if convicted, both men could face up to 20 years in prison. I'm not sure if that's a maximum or a minimum sentence. That's just what was reported in the articles.
Okay, well, from from my understanding, and I'll put this out there. I'm not a lawyer. I I do know two or three lawyers personally, and they say, like, when you hear 20 years, like, they say that is the minimum. So I mean, 20
Okay.
years on top of a 17 and a half year sentence, so you're looking at 37 and a half years, depending.
Hmm.
That is, if that's the minimum, if he's found, if they're found guilty. But we'll see. It all depends on what happens. Scott,
Sure.
You know what I hear? You know what I hear exactly off of all that?
What you Scott?
For every successful black person, they think we doing something illegal. That's what I hear. Not the point that it took 20 years basically to solve this murder. It boils back down to he was doing something illegal and it went wrong. That's the reason why he got killed. And then it makes me wonder, some of the other greats, Tupac, Biggie Smalls, that's not
Of course,
solved
that
either.
comes to mind.
Steadily going on. But I guess they look at it as, for the music they was doing, they had to be doing that. That's the
Well, I mean, if you're not
stereotype
living
thing
what
what
you're
they
kicking,
spin.
then
Right. But
that's your street credibility on the line right there.
my thing is this. Of what? Of what? It goes back to the show where we was talking about with DJs, where they went. This man was a bona fide DJ of the group. He
Hmm.
kept the crowd rocking and rolling, all of that. Bona fide, but 10 keys a coat. This is what this man was doing.
I mean,
Instead of
that's
them
what the report
honoring
says.
him, but what I'm saying is this: instead of honoring that they solved this man's murder, regardless of the situation it may be, he was murdered. Can you give the family the proper closure without saying, "Hey, by the way, we think he was doing this. This is why all of this happened." You do not need to do that. They did not need to put that out there. What they should have did, said, "Hey, we feel these two gentlemen did it. This is the evidence to back it up." Give the family time to have closure, that you finally brought somewhat justice to that fallen family member getting killed, murdered.
Well, we have to let justice play itself out as well. Like I said, all of this is alleged. We don't have any, what I'm saying? We don't have a conviction, a verdict. So all of this is still alleged. So we can't even, we don't know if this will actually bring justice to the family, but we're hoping this is a step in the right direction.
But even alleged though,
yeah,
you still tarnishing this man's name and legacy by saying he was selling drugs.
I mean, it does tarnish it. It once again, it is interesting. It's it's what's even more interesting about that is that that's the most recent theory that they've come out with recently. Prior to that, they said that, or one theory was that the gentleman who shot him, I'm not saying quote unquote who shot him, had a grudge with his mentee, and his mentee at that time was 50 Cent. So he had a grudge with, he was beefing with 50, and then he shot, Jam Master Jay to get even with 50. Like, yeah, I got, your person or whatnot. And you never heard them say anything else about that. But besides that, they say, yeah, that theory wasn't correct. But they had a lot of theories. Like they even looked into Jam Master Jay's history, and they said that none of that made sense because he didn't beef with anybody. Like who would he beef with? He was
Well, I
well,
mean,
he was liked. So it's like
well, I
stuff.
mean,
It's
if
interesting.
it is true, if you setting up shop to do business out of town and then you cut somebody out of deal, again, that's what's alleged. But if that's the truth, that seems like a pretty decent enough motivation for somebody to want to come after you. Just saying.
Okay, okay, fine. We'll go down that rabbit hole.
Hmm.
I'll go to the tape, what everyone's been talking about for close to 20 years. To get into this man's studio, you go upstairs. It's a camera. You got to knock on the door. It's a secretary that's supposed to be sitting at the desk all the given time, not including directly to your right, a little bit down the hallway, is the security room. It's supposed to be a person in there. The next
Okay.
door, close to another studio, and then his personal stuff. The lounge is to the left. So you trying to tell me what they said allegedly? Someone got past the buzzer on the door, just locked. You got to get buzzed in. No secretary was there. Okay, I can see that maybe that person stepped out lunch or had to do something real quick. I can give you that part.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
somebody in the security room at all given times, but all of a sudden they ain't in the security room.
So you saying inside job maybe?
It's a
It's a
theory.
lot of moving parts to it, but it don't make sense.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Especially when it's a camera pointing at the secretary. It's another camera pointing down the hallway to where the studios was. 2 cameras in the lounge room, 3 cameras in the studio, 2 in this office. You trying to
I
tell me
mean, it seems to be
someone who
very
got
well.
that much surveillance and they ain't pulling nothing off no tape? But then they said no, the VCRs and the tape was gone. But even though back then everybody knows security systems had a backup system. You had one reel that filmed here, the other one filmed somewhere else. We had the
That's
2 by.
true.
yeah. So it's
But it's crazy. If you was going down that rabbit hole and what they said what this man was doing, okay, when did he cut the cameras off? Because you can ask anybody who used to go by the studio. At any given hour, you hear Jay up there mixing and blending beats. Or if he come off the road, he's giving tutelage to up and coming people. This man, like Reed said, was well loved.
yeah, it's
That's true.
When you doing that? In front of you
Again,
showing kids how
it's
to
hard.
blend beats and stuff like.
It's hard to believe. We can't. Again, we have nothing but speculation to go off of. So you know what I mean. Again, all we can really go off of at this moment is what's in the report.
right.
Like I said, it seems
Right.
likely, but it seems all too likely.
It's
The other thing to me that don't add up, one of the gentlemen that Les is doing is 36 right now.
Mm.
You trying to tell me a 12-year-old, 12, around that
Well,
age frame, 12 to maybe 15, went with a grown man who's now 50 something, who was in his 30s when this happened.
Yeah.
You trying to tell me
Yeah,
your
yeah.
running partner is a
Just
12 or
thinking about
15-year-old person?
Yeah.
just no, because okay, let's break this down. Hold on. How old is Mr. Washington? I believe Free you have access to
He's
that information?
56, 56, 57.
56.
Okay,
So he
so if
was
he's
36.
56,
So that means he was
we're talking
36 when
about,
this was happening. He was 50, yeah, 20 years
and
ago.
how old
So
is and how
he
old
was
is
36 when
Mr.
this happened.
Mr.
is Mr.
Jordan.
Jordan?
He's 36 right now. He's 36 right now, so he's around 16. You trying to tell me a 16-year-old in
Yes,
2002
yes, yes,
is relaxing and chilling, and he's the second gunman for a 30-year-old?
yes. I don't know what the connection is between the two gentlemen, but yes, if you, depending on the circumstances, you could catch it. You could catch a young man, and the promises of that lifestyle, that money, especially considering how much the alleged amount of narcotics was supposed to be moved. We're talking about 10 kilos. Excuse me. Yeah, I believe you can get a kid that would think somehow he could magically pull that off. Yes.
Okay, you
Yeah,
brought
that
that up. 10 keys, street value in 2002 would it be close to about 20 something mil. 10 keys, if you look at it roughly. 10 keys, about 20 mil.
And this was
So
now, mind you, Jam Master Jay's setup is in Jamaica, Queens, New York. These narcotics were supposed to be transported and distributed in Maryland. So we're talking about crossing state lines, especially with that
right,
amount. We're always talking about serious felony charges here.
right. But I mean,
yes.
not
So
even.
that also falls in part of a different statute, kingpin, right?
No, well, I wouldn't say kingpin, but I would say somebody trying to conduct a serious operation. Yes.
I mean, even if that's the case, right? We still have to look at this with a you know with some sort of skepticism because we're
Mm.
we're not 100% sure what's been going on. These are all relatively new facts that somebody has probably thrown together. Like, yeah, this makes sense. If we
Mm.
say this about this gentleman, then it ties everything up, with a nice little bow. If you look at it that way,
Uh, uh,
everything that's going on now, they have to find some way to
but Reed, if
up.
But what would you get a confession
if
out
we
of
look at it
anybody
that
from?
way, okay. But my thing is this though, Reed Black. If we look at it that way, this came out in 2007, 5 years after the incident. Why didn't they wrap it up
Mm.
in a bow then instead of waiting until now? You wait until now,
Well,
and the
maybe that.
man is already in jail.
Well, maybe that
But
speaks
you
more to the
suspected of this
maybe.
man doing it in 2007.
So
Well, maybe that speaks more to the cultural stigma of not snitching, because I mean the family, Jam Master Jay's family, offered up to I believe 60 grand as far as a reward for any possible leads. Now that's some life changing money right there. And if people aren't jumping at that, then that to me that just tells me that the cultural understanding of not snitching is more prevalent, is more of a higher commodity than the money itself.
right, because so once again, according to the New York Times, um,
Hmm.
the the older gentleman, Mr. Washington, I believe was his name.
Hmm.
So he was also beefing with Jam Master Jay's nephew. He also
Hmm.
apparently and supposedly he also shot at his nephew, but his nephew didn't cooperate with the police. His nephew was like, "No, no, no, everything's okay." So they dropped the case
Hmm.
completely. So maybe that's where all of this stems from. Maybe it's not so much that Jam Master Jay was the initial target, maybe it was the nephew, and Jay just got caught up in it. You know, I haven't heard.
Well, I'm not.
But wasn't it the nephew that found him?
That's what I'm saying.
Because I gotta go back over some of the footage of how they broke down the crime scene. Right. You know, today's way how I'm looking at it with forensics is it's totally different than what it was back then. But
true.
That's what I'm saying.
With that being said, I'm sorry, Reed. It goes back to like how you said. It's like we understand 1 + 1 = 2, but all of a sudden, you done forgot some pieces out. How in the world did you get to 5, but you didn't add the other 3 things in there? Like how I said,
well, we fill that in.
You had to come into account. His studio was heavily surveyed,
right?
Tight security. A door that only opens from the inside. That meant somebody had to let you in.
True.
Well, that would like, tell me that
it was
whoever
no handles
the gunman
on it,
was,
no nothing.
But that would tell me that whoever the gunman was would obviously be someone close enough to the victim.
Yes. So my thing also with that, if you can look at it, why all of a sudden you spin it and you look at the person who got killed, he was tied up in this. When it's like how, I don't know if y'all thinking it, I'm looking at it as, okay, he was beefing with your nephew, this was happening. Wait a minute. How your place of business, it tight knit, good security, but all of a sudden, you was running this, and this out of it.
Plot holes.
So
I grew up through the 80s.
You're
I grew up through the 80s. I listened to a lot of
this.
That's what I'm saying. But I grew up in the 80s. Run DMC used to be one of my favorite rappers, one of my favorite rap groups. Listen to them all at a given time. They were not preaching half the time about gang violence, doing all the drug stuff. It was a lot of more party music, what you can dance to.
One of their claim to fame.
That wasn't a repertoire. Right. That wasn't a repertoire. So if you're going by that cliche, like how we said, well, that ain't what they preaching. That ain't what they doing. They wasn't doing the so-called gangster rap or that walk. They wasn't doing it. They was doing stuff with Def Leppard and all of them, Walk This Way and everything else. And,
I think that's why the news is so. But I think that's why the news is so jarring, because it's like, okay, somebody I wouldn't expect to be involved in that type of dealings, and that's potentially why you got killed. It you know what I mean? It's gonna shake you to your foundation, because it's like, you know what? That's not that. They don't seem like they would. He doesn't seem like he was a part of that life.
It doesn't.
You know what I mean? It doesn't add up. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't add up.
It don't. And it's sad about the whole occasion. It's like I said, the family had somewhat closure, but now you're looking at it for over 20 years. You're starting to try to put piece by piece, and these pieces, to me, they somewhat fit in this jigsaw puzzle, but they in the wrong spot.
No, they don't. The pieces don't fit. It's not that they somewhat fit. The pieces don't fit at all. This is
why we're gonna have to wait for further information to be made available to us.
Yeah.
Again, just to have this concept of this is the possible motive is for me a stretch, but that idea had to come from somewhere. So I don't know if somebody's creating something to possibly, give themselves a lesser sentence. I don't know. But it is a very out there claim, to say the least.
Right. As of right now, and I'll say this, and this, the only thing that would make sense to me is the idea that I just put forward, is these two gentlemen were actually beefing with Jam Master Jay's nephew.
Mm-hmm.
He got caught in it.
Possible.
That's the only thing in my mind right now which makes sense. But once again, we don't have all the information yet. We don't have all the facts.
Nah, this is just
But on
crazy.
that,
You know,
hold on.
crazy that we're working on it.
When they were interviewing people, even way back in 2002, his nephew really never gave a statement. Never really, because I've looked over a lot of footage this whole entire week prepping for this show. His nephew really never gave a statement, and how they broke down the crime scene, going up the steps from the main street. You had to get buzzed in, the security stuff. It ain't, to me.
I mean, there's, once again, like you said, there's a lot of moving parts. There's
Yeah, a lot.
that don't make sense. But this is going to be one of those things that we're going to have to watch closely.
Yeah,
very much.
But for me and anybody else, if I'm being accused of something and I didn't do, I'm gonna make a statement of nah, you know. But this man.
Well, remember one of the gentlemen. Well, remember one of the gentlemen are currently incarcerated as is. So.
Right, but that also goes, you know, that it goes back to what Nick said earlier. You know, no snitching. I have.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
You know, I have nothing to say. I don't have to worry about anything. Okay, yeah.
You don't really have help from the community in that regard.
Yeah, and it's all about community help. It's all about being loyal to the people that you're with, to the people who are there with you.
But something had to be said for it to come out 20 years later. So what does that really say? The loyalty was not that strong in somebody's gap.
We need to figure out what exactly caused this to come out, because the motivations for this coming to the surface now could determine whether or not, the validity of the statement. Yeah, of course. But, again, right now, this is all the information that we have to go off of.
Right. It's very, very interesting. Always. Very. Never know. Once again, this is just going to be one of those things that we're going to have to watch closely, and just.
Hey, maybe we can get an answer to Pac and Big. You never know.
Yeah. But on that note,
they even did a TV series about that and got nothing yet.
We'll see. Let's just keep our eyes and ears to the street on this one. See what pops up. See what they say.
Definitely.
Most definitely.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Clockwise Thoughts. As always, a clock is only right twice a day, so why not be right all the time? We'll catch you next time as the clock turns and resets here on Clockwise Thoughts.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.